As a final step in this introduction to data modeling, I want to talk about the idea of associating one model with another. And in this case, users, these slash users, actually it's just a slash, either will work. Users in general will have potentially many microposts. So there's an association between users and microposts. Let's look at a diagram of that. This is a diagram of the kinds of rows that you might see in a database. Here's the micropost table with a row for each micropost, and a users table with a row for each user. So the user ID here links into the user underscore ID field of the micropost table. And so you can see here that the first two microposts both belong to the first user, and the second micropost belongs to the second user. And so this first user has many microposts. There are two. The second user also has many microposts. It just happens that there's only one, but there could be multiple ones. The way to express that relationship in Rails is to use has many and belongs to. So let's open up our user model. That was the go to anything here, go to anything, either Command E or Command P, and then you can change it up if you're on Windows. It's a really useful way of finding a file if you know the name of the thing you're looking for, instead of having to navigate in this navigator here. So what we want to say here is that a user has many microposts, and a micropost belongs to a user. That's what's going to set up that association. Now later on we'll be actually expressing that relationship through a web interface, but I don't want to build that right now. It's a little bit too complicated this early in the tutorial. So I want to show you how this works using a really powerful tool called the Rails console. Let's take a look at that. The Rails console essentially gives us a command line environment for interacting with our Rails app. So for example, I can pull the first user out of the database like this. Just give it a name, and this is the user model, user.first. We'll pull out the first user. One of the things that the console shows you is this raw SQL. This is the structured query language understood by databases, or at least the kinds of databases we'll be using. But it's not important at this stage to worry about what this command is doing. It's just a useful thing to be able to map this Ruby to the SQL, especially in case you're familiar with SQL already. We can access the different attributes of this user like this, just using the dot command, first user dot name, Michael Hartle, email, and so on. But we can also use this. We can say microposts because of this line here, has many microposts, and because of the association between the ID of the user and the user ID column here in the microposts. And there it is. First micropost here is associated with the user. Go back here and make a new micropost. Let's go here. Also associated with user 1. And we can go over here and just run it again. And so this is actually a subtlety. You can see that it didn't show up, and that's because this user here is the one that is just in memory in our application or in this console. So what we could do is we could redo this. We could do first user equals user.first. That will work. But there's a fancier way to do it, which is to reload it. You can do this. You can actually chain these methods together, which means just having one after the other. You can reload the user, and there's the second post. Just to recapitulate, start from scratch, pull the user out of the database, and there it is. Finally, we can access this micropost like this. Just say this micropost is the first user.micropost.first. Just pull that out. And then we can ask the micropost ledger content. And because of this line that belongs to user, we can also ask the micropost who its user is. And there we go. So that's how associations work at a very high level. And of course, this will get discussed in a lot more depth later on in the tutorial. It's Control D to get out of the console. You can also type exit.